Hello, welcome inside the Hera Press Box. Our show today, think I'm going to just give it over to Alyssa. She has a few topics that she wants to talk about, articles that she's read, and a documentary that she has watched
Mhm.
that I have not watched and don't plan to. But from what we both sense, I'll have some opinions on what she says, and so we'll cover that first, I guess, and then
Yeah.
we have that little segment we'll go through. I'll go through our scores, and that'll probably be our 40 minutes there. So,
Mhm.
Alyssa, if you want to take it away, go ahead.
Yeah, what's your reasoning behind not watching the documentary? Is it just because you're just not interested?
My initial thought is, what's the point of her making it?
It's different than anything that I have at least experienced from Maria. It's something that you would have never thought that she would make. And I think that helps in being able to relate to what happened to her in some sort of way to actually see how it affected her. Just and it essentially took you through day one. She started off, it starts off with her, videotaping herself saying, "This is the morning of where I'm going to the press conference," and telling the world that I messed up. She didn't use that word. She actually swore throughout this thing, and I kind of gasped every time she did it because I just wasn't expecting it from her. If you watched her, I don't know how much you pay attention to Maria Sharapova, if you ever did, but she was the type of player that is pretty much as professional as you can get. So it's kind of the last thing that you would have ever expected from her. I thought she was retiring. She said she had this press conference. I'm like, how are you retiring? I know you've had some injuries. And my jaw hit the floor when she said that she was tested positive for doping. And then you also think of her as someone who's pretty much kept to herself. Probably why she isn't so liked on tour. And Serena was kind of that way starting off with, but I think she's kind of thinned up a little bit along the years. But those two are probably the two people who are the most professional that you can get on tour. So that's why, and more reserved, I should say. So that's why I kind of wanted to watch it just to see what it was like for her and for her team as well.
And she talks a
But
lot about her
yeah,
team, right?
yes, she did. In that kind of it. So she's originally from Russia, but she's pretty much been in the US for the majority of her life. But when she was, I think, 12, 13, 14, when she was actually getting into, we're going to go professional, we're going to need a doctor. She's never had a family doctor up until that point. And her dad was more comfortable with going with a doctor from Russia. And that's what they did. And he gave her a list of medications to take. And the medication that is now, I guess, quote unquote, illegal, however you want to call it, was on that list. So she's been taking it, like she said in her press conference, for what, over 10 years, I think now. So she always had that doctor to essentially, that was her point person to check the list. Then in 2013, she had ended up splitting away from that doctor, and then she put it on her manager to check the list. I guess her kind of as well, but she essentially delegated tasks to people, and that was one of his tasks, was to check that list. And for whatever reason, neither of them did at the end of 2015. And 2016 rolls around, Australian Open, she gets tested positive for it. And she takes full responsibility. I mean, every time she mentions anything about how she was delegating tasks or how the ITF didn't really do any notification, you have people who are weightlifters through Team USA who get emails with highlighted in red saying, here's the banned substance that's coming up, type of deal. It's just, obviously she should have checked the list, could have been better about being notified about it. Obviously, she's been tested for, in her test, it comes up before it was illegal. So you would think that the ITF would be like, hey, just so you know, the substance is going to be banned starting January 1 of 2016. But
so here, the article that I kind of a summary of the documentary talks about how her relationship with her agent is strengthened by this screw up. And so how's that portrayed in the documentary, and how's that possible considering that he's even though she's taken some responsibility, he has practically cost her this amount of time away from tennis.
Yeah, and I think there was one particular scene that I think really portrayed that their relationship has been strengthened, and it was when so originally the ITF gave her a 2-year ban, which was initially absolutely ridiculous because in the letter it said that she had intent and that she tried to cover it up, and it's like, she's been taking it for 10 years. If she would try and be covering it up, she would have done a whole lot better job than she did. And you've known about it. So there's no way she's covering it up. So of course she appeals. The appeal comes back to 15 months. And she was setting up to do media after that separate judge had ruled on it. And she was really excited to see him, and his reaction to pretty much just kind of like a weight was lifted off. Yes, it sucks that she still has to wait 15 more months to play, but at least it's not as detrimental as a 2-year ban would have been. So he was excited. He was elated, essentially. Everyone was at the end of the day that it went from 2 years to 15 years. And just her team, she even says in the video, is her family. And so they were going through the ups and downs with her. They had her back throughout it all. I mean, he easily could have been just like, see ya, goodbye. I don't want to deal with all of the press, all of this, all of that. What if sponsors drop? Which sponsor drop? And it was either Tag Heuer or Avon, and I can't remember if Nike still stayed with her. So obviously, if you're getting sponsored by Nike, they must have some sort of backing as a reason why they stood with her through all of this. And I would just like to say, just a comparison, and I wanted to start off with this, and it's not a fair comparison, but I just want to throw this out there. Hope Solo in the U.S. Soccer Federation is to what the ITF and Maria Sharapova are. See, so the federations have it out for these players is essentially what I'm getting at. The only thing with Hope Solo is that it's kind of been a long history of all of this, of what she's been doing. Maria, this was a first-time thing. And to me, and I'm a little bit biased because I've always been a Sharapova fan, but to me it was pretty clear that it wasn't intentful. She wasn't purposely trying to gain an edge over anybody. It's been pretty clear that she's been able to win multiple major championships. So being able to take this drug and it being essentially legal.
Yeah, and no, that's an interesting point that you bring up, and makes me wonder why there is that, how it's, technically the same situation, just a different sport, and how does that jump over the line into a different sport, make it such a harsher disciplinary stance from the federation? And I don't know, I guess I initially think about where tennis comes from and kind of how tennis has always been the high class sport, the wealthy out there on their Sundays
in their Wimbledon whites,
not too long to get sunburnt, but long enough to
get a little
time. And I don't know, I kind of feel like soccer is from a place of royalty, but not as much as tennis. So I wonder if that has anything to factor in. Does the federation still see themselves as this almighty power that wears a crown?
Yeah, and I think you're right, because they had an ITF member on there who basically, logical person, if she's been taking this for 10 plus years, would know that she didn't have an intent to do so. She started taking this medication when she was a teenager. So obviously she didn't know what was going on. Her dad was pretty much in control of things back then. He was a little bit nasty with his comments. I was not a fan of him, and he was an older gentleman. So you can kind of see that, tennis has had this long history of, I guess, being proper and doing things the right way, and necessarily being a dirty sport. It wasn't like she took a steroid. Well, okay, well, that's going into a gray area. But he ever even said this was the last person that you would ever expect to have this come out about. And it's been split. The players have been split on it. And they showed some clips of players pretty much saying some things. But I think her main problem now is that she has served her suspension, the one that ITF has handed down. But she essentially is still serving it. The French Open didn't give her a wild card in. And it was specifically they came out and said it was specifically because she tested positive. So is this a continuation of things? I do believe she's hurt right now. So I think Wimbledon is out of the picture, but I thought I read somewhere they weren't going to give it to her anyways. I could be wrong on that. But assuming she's good to go by the US Open, is she in a position where she's ranked and so she's pretty much an automatic qualifier? Is she going to have to do wild card? Is the US Open going to give her the wild card? So it's essentially kind of turning out to be, as far as majors go, at least right now, that she's still serving in an indirect way.
Yeah, and then my initial thought of U.S. Open is it seems to be the less of the majors, the least or the most lax, I guess, right? So if there's any chance somebody says gives her the chance, then it would be the U.S. Open.
Right. Yeah. I think so as well. But it was just interesting to see a different side of her. She was very open and honest, at least from what I could tell. She really, at this point, to hide, because it's out there. And she, like I said, spoke open and honestly.
Well, good for her. Glad you watched it.
What are your thoughts on her suspension, that whole thing as far as tennis goes? If you get caught for doping, suspensions, all of the above is pretty much what I'm asking.
I think what they initially gave her was too strong of a disciplinary action, but at the same time, out of all the sports, I think you got to put tennis up there as far as being stern on that kind of thing, because it's a 1v1 sport. So any kind of advantage that you gain, it's not like, you can take a little bit away because your teammates aren't as good, and you are your team in that kind of a sport. So
what about cycling?
Yeah, same thing.
But Lance Armstrong got away with it for who knows how long.
Right.
So it would be a topic of discussion to see what would happen. And I just want to throw this out there for conversation's sake. Not saying that it's going to be any different, but what if, let's say Andy Murray. I would say Andy Murray's kind of on the same level of Maria Sharapova. Probably a little bit more well-liked on tour. Won at least one major championship. Maria's multiple. So what would happen? Let's just say something like this. Same thing where he's been taking it for who knows how long. next year rolls around, it's banned substance. He didn't read the list either. What happens? I would just like to see what would happen.
Yeah, and this is the first major offense that we've kind of seen as far as this is concerned. So, I mean, I would say it's possible that this is kind of a test run for the Federation, right?
Right.
We're going to suspend her for this long, and let's see how everybody reacts, and let's see if she cleans up her act, and if this was effective in what we're trying to do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Before a big star guy gets suspended, let's see what it does with Maria.
And so I looked up the last 3 years of highest paid female athletes. So 2014, I do believe she was number 1. And then 2015, it was Serena. And Maria was second.
Mm-hmm.
Year that she didn't pretty much play at all, she was number 2. So it's not like it was the 150th ranked player in the WTA.
Yeah.
Or, in international tennis, I should say, just anything.
Right, and they probably missed out on the draw that she brings to tournaments. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. You would think that tournaments are missing out on making money. So I expect her, like I said, I do believe she's still injured, but I expect her to be playing a lot more smaller tournaments, a lot more probably smaller tournaments that she wouldn't have probably normally played, just to essentially get her ranking up. And it's going to bring in money, so I feel like people aren't going to be like, no, you can't come and play.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to come see her, even if they don't like her. They're going to come see her. At least in my opinion.
No, I think that happens. So, and I hope, I hope she comes back. There's nothing stopping me from wishing that for her. So,
right.
Huh.
That's pretty much all that I had to say about that. I just kind of wanted to.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks. And
Maria Sharapova.
What's that?
I said I came to the defense of Maria Sharapova.
Oh. No, I mean, I don't plan on watching that. So, yep, you spared your hour to analyze it, so that's fine.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was good.
What I do have are the scores, a recap of a not very active week at all.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Only one game in the WNBA this week. Glory Johnson's double-double led the Dallas Wings over the still winless Stars. In softball, San Antonio wins 2 against Texas. Scrapyard sweeps Chicago, and Akron defeats Beijing in their 2-game series. There are no midweek games in the NWSL, but Saturday on Lifetime, Orlando plays Houston. Then the weekend cap is Sky Blue in Chicago on Sunday.
Yeah, because that last Pride and Dash game was so great. I'm so glad that game is on national TV now.
Yeah, they've obviously not introduced the whole flex thing where you can switch games out, because they do have they have a backup game for that time on purpose, but for them not to change.
Are we told the backup game for that day?
We can figure it out if they're at the same time. I pulled it up right here. Yep. So it's Boston, North Carolina. So probably also going to be it's probably a 4-0 game.
Right.
So I don't know if you saw the picture today that Jennifer Gordon retweeted. It was early this morning, I think, is when she retweeted it. And it's a Houston Dash player laying on the ground in the box with Stephanie LeBay holding the ball and kind of just looking at the player on the ground. And then Zadorsky is walking away, and she's kind of just staring at the player on the ground too. And the player on the ground is Sarah Hagen. And she's just laying there, and I can't tell if it's pain or if it's disgust or if it's in frustration or probably a little bit of all three. It looks like
it. Let me see. I came across a couple of her tweets. It was today?
The tweet was posted yesterday, 21st. Yeah, Desiree Scott commented, "OMG, haha, that stare down though."
That looked kind of like pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that wraps up a lot of things for Gordon's season.
I mean, yeah, we weren't going to talk about it.
No,
We're not going to talk about it.
I didn't plan on it. Okay. Anyway.
But speaking of soccer, and I'm going to
Yeah.
pronounce his last name probably completely wrong. Tony DeChico.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty surprising news. Have you heard anything? Have you come across anything?
No,
As
and I
far
haven't
as
looked much.
okay,
I did see there was some sort of special on ESPN about him, but I did not get to
okay, I didn't see
watch.
that. I didn't see that.
I don't know how far in depth they went,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of segment they dedicated to him, but I did see that they spent some time talking about
They
him.
they spent time talking about a women's coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of
No,
sad. I
but
guess that's what it takes, but
right, right. Well, and it was, I mean, a pioneer for not just women's soccer. I would say a lot of women's sports. For him to be come in and be fully committed to the women's program and not kind of use it as a stepping stone was huge. And then obviously to go off and win a World Cup, even bigger.
yeah. So I don't have any headlines to discuss, so
Mhm.
it's all up to you.
So we're gonna go into your interview.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying for the last, 10, 15 minutes is fine.
Did you bring your resume?
I don't need a resume.
Which also means you don't have a resume. So that's great. Make note of that. Does not have a resume.
With me.
All right. So I guess first general
I have a
question.
LinkedIn.
You have a link. First general question to start off with, typical first interview question.
Okay.
Tell me about yourself.
Well, I am a pretty active person. I participate in a lot of athletic events myself. I like to attend athletic events of all different sports, and pretty avid follower of this league, of the National Women's Soccer League. I've been involved with it as far as being a fan since the inception. Follow all teams, all players, like to know the ins and outs, and do my own research anytime throughout during the day, and just make sure I'm caught up with what's going on in the action.
That all sounds great. Is there anything that you have done so far that specifically qualifies you to be the commissioner of the NWSL?
Yeah, definitely on as big of a scale as I can possibly reach. I promote the league. I discuss league or somehow work headlines or events of the league into conversation, and kind of compare it to, let's say we're having a talk about a different sport or maybe even the MLS. I'll try to throw some knowledge to those other people about players in the league, or kind of just a recap of maybe what happened to hopefully turn those people into NWSL fans, or at least make them look up the league. Got to start somewhere. And that's this type of league. So, yeah, I do believe I've made impacts in promoting the league.
So, in promoting the league, kind of going off of that, what do you think the league needs to do more of, less of, something completely brand new in order to essentially market the league, get the league's name out there, and just grow essentially popularity of the league?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a huge continuing step of promoting this league and growing it, because I already do think it's on a great path of becoming a huge market throughout the country, and just continuing the rise of attendance, building those fan bases locally, then expanding those fan bases, whether that means bringing in expansion teams, which I do think is one of the next steps of building this league, and making those player fan connections very personal to the fan, to bring them in. Maybe some fans who aren't fully bought in but kind of pay attention. You know, if they see these players going to these public events and talking or helping out the children of the community, that's great. And we're already doing that, to continue that and to influence the fans, and to just show that, you know, I guess we care for them, so they should care for us. It's kind of a psychological thing that I believe will happen, and that's the continuing step that needs to happen there.
I agree with you there. I think we do a great job of hosting public events already, having the players out in the community. So definitely the personal connection with the fan base is huge for us already. So definitely want to keep on continuing that. Within that answer, you brought up expanding. What are your thoughts on that? Essentially anything and everything. Where should the teams be? Should we add one more team? Should we add 2, 3? And what is the talent going to be like? Are we going to be able to bring in the talent for the expansion, if you are for the expansion?
Yeah, I think the talent's already there. And then coupled with the talent that is in the U.S., the international market continues to grow. And as players continue to be impressed by what we're doing here and hopeful that they can one day play here and excited to come to the States and play, then it's a great market to continue to grow that pool of players who are available for our current teams, and as we both mentioned now, the expansion teams. And where those expansion teams, I do want to see it kind of and spread across the whole nation, whether that means, well, it definitely means getting a team in California, at least one team in California, a couple more teams in the Midwest, potentially expanding to across our northern borders into Canada is very possible. And as far as a number of teams goes, I can easily see this league in the future having 20 teams. Currently we sit at 10. Obviously you're not going to get 10 at the same time,
right.
But let's say I'm commissioner for, you know, if I'm commissioner for 6 to 8 years in there, I think those 10 teams at least are in the works. You know, maybe we start off with 4 expansion teams and start to work our way there. And just as we figure out where the best locations are, if we're going to have the fan support, setting up the front offices for those teams first and foremost, getting people invested into the team before we cut that tape for them to start digging and creating a stadium. Let's get the foundation set for the fan base and for the team first.
Do you think that Barca having a team here in the NWSL is a good idea?
Yeah, it's
pros and cons. You can go both ways. You can give me yes because, and you can give me no because. I'll make it easy.
Yeah, if they are 100% invested into a program here, there's no reason for me as a commissioner to say no, this isn't going to work. There's no reason to do that, especially if we do have those 6 or 8 or eventually 10 expansion teams. If we can, if you're going to have 8 or 9 owners who are from here and that have invested in the American game all along, to see an outside team come in and invest their time and money into a program here and to women's game broadly, globally. That helps with that market, which is another great avenue that the NWSL has already started down
Mhm.
and has the potential to reach fantastic heights.
So give me a reason why it wouldn't be a good idea.
I think it's just that they are an outsider, I guess, is what people are going to say. So
Right.
if it were to happen, we're going to do our best to not label them as outsiders. We will welcome them into the community, make sure that there's no hard feelings, and that everybody just feels welcome and feels like they are an NWSL community as opposed to a national versus international community.
So more or less kind of a technical question, kind of digging deeper into the actual league. I've got two main questions, and we got about 10 minutes left, so that's pretty good. What can we do as far as what kind of benefits we can offer to our players, what kind of salaries we can offer to players? Do we increase the number of players on a team that are allotted to use their international team to pay for them? Do we add on countries to that list? Kind of give me a breakdown of how that can happen. So basically how a non-allocated player can essentially make a living off of just playing soccer.
First of all, I want to give credit to the players who have already started this push for themselves in this non-allocated union that the players have created. I think that's a great first step, and I look forward to hopefully working with that union to have these same discussions and the same question that you asked me. And I think we can build these players up and give them something to live off of internally. I don't think we have to look too much farther than getting more sponsors to buy into the game. Eventually, we'll work on a new TV deal, which, great possibility to really put a lot of money on the table for our players to expose them to how many different markets. So as far as trying to work with other countries to allocate the money, I don't think we're going to have to do that. And that's one less thing for us to worry about, one less thing for the players to worry about, one less thing for the union to worry about. I would love to be able to work directly with that union to talk about just these brief few things that I mentioned, just more partners of the league, and really just expanding the market that way, expanding and then bringing in that money, because yes, these players need to make a living. They deserve to. They've worked hard to get here. They deserve everything that we can possibly give them, and I plan on having a lot to give.
So as far as, and I'm going to go kind of backwards a little bit, in growing the sport, how important do you think development leagues are? So starting at a younger age, essentially setting up academies, how important is that something that we need to start doing at middle school age, high school? Are we more focused on college areas in order to keep on growing the game, to still bring in the talent that we have right now?
I think something that we can do as a league is sponsor those sort of events and camps. Academies, I'm not 100% bought into academies. I'm not 100% against academies. But as far as sort of an AAU style of summer leagues, and that's aside from say the high school season, which I hope that the NWSL can have a huge stamp on, whether that is attending games and showing our support for those programs. And that comes with the expansion across the nation. We want to be able to touch all regions of the states, be able to put any kind of impact, positive impact that we can on these young athletes, to continue to grow the game, to continue to increase and improve the interest that we've already received, and again, back to that foundation, a foundation of players who will one day aspire to not leave the country, to not go play in a league across the world because they want to make more money. That shouldn't be a driving factor for any player. They should want to stay home, make money here, not have to worry about a different job in the off season, make a living off of what they've done. And if that can come from, starting with summer camps that come at a low cost because the NWSL has sponsored those events, then perfect.
Just kind of, I guess maybe if you want to call it a wrap-up question, what can the league do now to promote itself even better? I know we already kind of talked about marketing. We want to talk about individual teams, what they can do across kind of multiple different media. You think it's good already?
It is good, but I mean, everything can improve. And one thing, as I was talking to fellow fans of the league, as you know, which I try to do as much as I can, try to attend games and try to get everybody's thoughts and opinions on what the league can do better. Well, I was talking to this one individual fan who was talking about how the team was not promoting itself by not promoting itself. Mm-hmm. Instead, they were promoting another player on a different team, which is odd and shouldn't be the way things go about it. You know, it's taking care of your own and putting a product on the field that you're proud of and that you want your fans to support. You know, don't come to watch another team. Of course, as a family, we're proud of everybody. We're proud of all the kids, right? But as far as a individual team, let's promote who we are, what we have on the field, and just be proud of that. I think that's the basis of promoting the team.
Sorry, one last question. What's the greatest thing about the NWSL right now?
The opportunity. I mean, we've seen two leagues that have collapsed I guess that's probably a great word to use, actually. Two leagues collapse, and now that we're farther than either of those two leagues ever made it, the opportunity is there. The salaries that we have mentioned a handful of times already, those are improving. We have 10 teams, and all these teams are having thousands of people attend all their games. And the players that are here genuinely seem like they are happy to be here. Obviously, they can improve, but from where we've come, and you know, it's tough to complain a lot. We can always complain a little bit, but we are in a great position, and just the opportunity is tremendous.
Well, that is all that I had for you, Clay. Thank you for your time. You will be hearing from me soon.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, some good answers. I think you should get the job. They should just hire you right now.
Yeah, I know. I felt pretty good about that.
Oh, one thing I didn't bring up to kind of go back to the beginning, talking about Maria. Because you were talking about, when I asked you about salaries, you were talking about how you don't want players to have to make essentially a living outside of the sport. And I think that's one thing that saved her from really spiraling down, was that she already kind of had a life outside of tennis. She was already, and that started a while ago, where she was doing fashion, and now she's got this candy out. And so she was able to find different avenues to essentially stay afloat, because I think most people would have collapsed. I mean, you kind of look at Hope Solo again, kind of going back to that comparison, and where is she? Given I think hers was a little bit harsher in the sense of, well, maybe not, because 6 months suspension and she's no longer on the U.S. Soccer Federation's list of people who they have to pay.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's just a little bit of a comparison there, but you kind of see that more in female athletes. Kind of in the big male athletes, you see it. LeBron's got some things going on. Dwayne Wade has some things going on. You look at WNBA and you got Delle Donne, who's doing stuff outside of it. I know Taurasi plays overseas, which you can still kind of say that, she's playing, but she's doing something outside of it. Then you look to soccer and pretty much everyone is doing something else outside of it because they have to. But if you look at the players who don't have to, Serena's doing stuff, Venus is doing stuff. Just kind of that extra step to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to play this sport for the rest of my life. So what am I going to do when it's all said and done? And what kind of identity can I build off the court or off whatever playing surface that they play on?
Right. And to be frank, I guess it has always seemed to me, and I guess this is probably one of the many reasons that I tend to respect female athletes more than male athletes. It's always seemed to me that women are more, I guess you could say, socially developed, in that they don't have to rely on or they can't rely solely on their professional athletic career, that they have to be socially up to par and be able to do kind of a sort of their side job that's outside of their athletic career. So it's always been impressive to me to even to keep it simple, like listening to a female athlete give an interview.
Right
9 times out of 10 it's going to be very knowledgeable, very educated sounding, which is
not
a
always
lot
the
better
case.
than exactly.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all that I have for tonight.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't have anything. So,
well, thank you for letting me talk the majority of the time in the beginning about Maria. I mean, like I told you before we started, I could go a whole hour plus probably.
Yeah, well, thanks you didn't. Thank you for not doing that. Okay, well, we will be back on Sunday. There will be NWSL to talk about. Finally, right? And except for that one, can we talk about the Pride and just not the other team, or how's that going? Yeah,
we can just say the other team.
Yeah, the other team. We will have the weekly daily report, so look forward to that.
Yeah, she happens to play on that other team.
Yeah, on that other team, the bottom dwellers. So yeah, we'll figure it out when we get there. But
yeah.
Okay, well then that is it from us, and we will see you Sunday night about 10 o'clock. See ya.